Hi, everyone. My name's Adam Boyle, and I'm the VP of Product here at Tackle. And I'm pleased to invite Tanya Brogan, the VP of Product at ClickHouse, and Josh Lindenbaum, the Senior Director of Worldwide Head of Hyperscaler Business Development and Marketplaces at NetApp, to talk about all things product-led growth and cloud marketplaces. Both of these individuals have been thought pioneers in how to structure product-led growth sales motions with their offers through cloud marketplaces. So we have a lot to learn from both of them today. Why don't we start with learning a little bit about both of them? Tanya, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing, Adam. So as you mentioned, I'm head of product at ClickHouse. But what is ClickHouse? We're a modern database for real-time analytics. What's unique about ClickHouse is that it's open source, so users can just download it and use it for free. But many users would like to use it as an offering. So what we built here is ClickHouse Cloud, which is a hosted offering around ClickHouse. And this is where we had a lot of decisions to make around product-led growth and how does that apply really to the analytical databases space.
That's great, Tanya. Thanks very much. And Josh, how about yourself?
My name is Josh Lindenbaum. I'm privileged to lead the global hyperscaler business development and marketplaces team at NetApp. So we drive the go-to-market alliances with AWS, Google, and Azure day to day. And for those that aren't aware, NetApp's what we call a legacy enterprise technology company based in Silicon Valley, about 30 years old, and have pivoted from being primarily an on-premise company to being a very cloud-centric company, and have launched a wide variety of third-party SaaS offerings via the cloud marketplaces. We're also fortunate enough to have first-party console services with AWS and Azure.
That's great, Josh. So it's really cool. We've got two amazing customers working through product-led growth sales motions. One who's kind of born in the cloud and is much younger, and another one has the traditional sales motions and traditional way of selling and making that transformation. So we're going to hear some interesting dynamics today. Why don't we start with the basics? Let's talk about what is product-led growth to you. So Tanya, why don't you tell us, what is product-led growth to you in ClickHouse? What does it mean?
Yeah, and I guess I think of it really as user-led growth. We have users. We know that they're excited to already use ClickHouse in some cases. In other cases, maybe they have just heard about it. And so how do they really realize that we have something to offer them? First of all, there's a problem they're struggling with. So how do they organically find something for their pain that they match back to ClickHouse or ClickHouse Cloud? How do they decide to start using it, to run a POC and just succeed with that initial step of discovering what our products do? To me, that's really product-led growth, but I really think about it from the standpoint of the user and the steps that they go through. And at each step, I want to make that journey really seamless. So we think a lot about organic content and discovering us through organic search. We think a lot about that initial experience coming to our website and discovering, do they need to go with open source or do they need to go with cloud? And once they get into cloud, what are those steps that they go through to really lead them to understanding that, yeah, we really can help them? So that's product-led growth or user-led growth as I think about it.
That's great. I love that. So really, it's led from the user's perspective, understanding the value and function of your product before making a purchasing decision, and really giving the sales motion a bit of a warm start, before a purchasing decision. That's great. Hey, Josh, how about you? What is the definition of product-led growth for you and NetApp?
Well, let me stipulate that I'm a BD guy. So I'm going to translate what my understanding is with my collaborators in the product org, who I work very closely with day to day.
Sure.
NetApp, again, I think we have an interesting contrast here with ClickHouse in that we approach this a little bit from the perspective of meeting a customer base that's very familiar with our technology, our kind of core ONTAP technology that powers all of our data management and storage solutions. So we think a lot about product-led growth in terms of the user experience of using a portfolio of cloud products that complement each other and orchestrating them with a single control plane that we've developed, and how that interoperability transpires as they either move to the cloud or perhaps start there, discover our products there. So while we certainly have a cohort of folks that discover us in the marketplaces, we utilize a lot of that same functionality, develop organic content to draw the person that might be new to NetApp in. We're also bringing a customer base that may be new to cloud to our technology and helping them understand that actually it can function a lot the same way that it does on premises. You just move from your own infrastructure to that of the IaaS being provided by the cloud. So that user experience drives everything. We look at it the same way as Tanya. The difference is we have people coming in that have, in some cases, been using our technology for decades, and we're bringing them into a new environment.
Interesting. Right. So maybe traditional on-prem customers using the SaaSified equivalent of the offers or adjacent products to help solve the problems they care about. That's really interesting. And I noticed both of you were talking about content. Yep. So I want to jump into to that one. Let's first go through kind of some of the key tenets of product growth. First, we start with, we know that acquisition is that first key event where both of you have partnered with your marketing teams, the website. You both talked about content. And then how do you acquire those customers into a free tier or a free trial, moving then to acquisition, then conversion, then retention. So let's double click into acquisition and some of the tactics you've applied. Tanya, why don't you walk us through some of your thoughts there?
Sure thing. Yeah. So we mentioned content. Our audience is fairly technical. So one important consideration for us is at what level of content do we really need to operate in order to speak credibly to them. So we actually have a technical content team that is engineers. I mean, these are developers, these are engineers that are building content because that's our audience. And
that's your persona that you're targeting is the
exactly
technical persona developers. Okay.
Exactly. Correct. Yeah. So those teams are responsible really for building the content that speaks to our audience. And then the distribution channel, right? There's, of course, the search engines, and that's where the marketing team really partners with this technical content team to make sure that that content can find its way into users' queries, into other places, maybe forums where they may be looking for it. So that kind of partnership really works for us and for our audience.
So you're putting your content in the places where developers hang out, where that
yes.
primary user persona hangs out, and you've partnered with the marketing team. You've got a technical bench of talent, subject matter experts that can keep cranking out this awesome content to get them aware of the value and function of the ClickHouse offers. Got it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Josh, how about you? I mean, again, you've got this wide dynamic of personas and existing customers as well as new prospects. How does NetApp, you talked about content, how do you partner with the marketing team and bring them in?
Yeah. So fortunately, our product marketing group lives within our product organization. And then I work most closely with what we call a hyperscaler marketing group that is very aligned to our go-to-market with the cloud. So, having that product marketing team closely coupled with the people building the cloud products drives some very, very pure messaging that speaks to the personas we're trying to target. A big part of our business now is moving beyond, our traditional customer in the early stages of the company for our on-prem solutions was a storage admin kind of profile. Wow. And now as we look to grow our revenue in the cloud, we're looking more at LOB stakeholders, application owners, and in some cases developers. When you have a file, when you need to leverage file technology in developing an application, you're targeting what was a new persona for us. We've been doing this now for 5-7 years. So fortunately, we see the marketplaces and the clouds driving a lot of new functionality and opportunities to leverage digital marketing tools. And then, we're constantly sort of iterating. We think a lot about the marketplaces themselves as being a highway into a solution landscape, and that each of our listings is a billboard. So how do we go in and, find that perfect sort of combination of not being overly product centric, but more solution centric,
right?
And describing how our products can be used for outcomes rather than going and look at our neat thing. It's like, look at what our neat thing can help you can accomplish or build. And that is a daily, weekly sort of iterative process that fortunately I'm fortunate enough to kind of receive downstream from our product and product marketing group.
That's cool. I got a ton of questions here I want to ask just around acquisition. The first thing is about the content creation. Are you hiring and this I'll start with Tanya. Are you hiring like technical writers to do this, or are you using the subject matter expertise within the teams? And then there's maybe more of an editorial flow with the marketing team to get that content out. How does that work at ClickHouse?
Yeah, it's really subject matter experts that are already deep experts in
Right.
ClickHouse that are most successful in that role. A few of them actually have moved from other roles. We've seen great success in consultants or support engineers gravitating more
engineers.
toward becoming content creators after some tenure in those organizations, which also provides a great career path. So we look for experts either outside or inside the company that really are passionate about putting together an example and then sharing it with an audience, which again requires deep research, building something, experimenting with something, but then ultimately packaging it up into an example or a demo or a blog. It's a pretty unique skill set, but yeah, an individual like that can be highly productive and just highly happy in that sort of career. So we have the title that we use is a technical marketing engineer, but there's other
Marketing engineer. Interesting.
correct, like product marketing engineers, like that. There's different titles, but that's like it's a well-defined role in our company and very important one.
Cool. And Josh, how about you? You talked about all this close to home content created. Who's creating it, and how is it then put into the car wash to be delivered out to your personas?
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes again from that sort of close coupling of product owners and then product marketing resources assigned to those specific products.
Yeah.
In the way that we build our even annual plans, like for instance, we just launched a new year and we're going through a lot of our QBR on the last year. I find that a lot of our actual product managers are quite articulate and excellent writers in and of themselves. They almost, they certainly will lean on marketing professionals maybe for the polish, but a lot of the raw product that I'll see from our product team is really able to characterize and sort of position that offering. And then, we have built our product portfolio partially through acquisition. So, for instance, our product marketing leader came from a company that we acquired. He was moved into a leadership role. And I mean, these are guys that have been in this space, in the data space for 10, 20, 30 years. And so while we do occasionally leverage outside resources, and there is a kind of a close relationship, like I said, between engineering to product, that sort of genesis of product ownership and product marketing ownership produces most of our content in-house. And really, I don't find that it's like, okay, we have this new product, now we got to figure out the marketing. It's been baked in at the inception and the rationale of building the product.
I love it. So tapping into existing SME talent who maybe their first class skill isn't writing content, but they have that domain knowledge of the market problems and the solutions, the tips and tricks, and getting that editorialized into a way that's consumable by the market for acquisition purposes. So now we've got all this content-led acquisition activity going on, and the call to action eventually ends up on your cloud marketplace listing. Let's talk about how you've structured the listing. Tell us a little bit about your listing and whether you're doing free trials, free tiers, or what is that low to no barrier entry point. Let's start with you, Tanya.
So what's interesting about our kind of our journey is I think most users they want to try the product first, right? So they may again download open source or they may come to our cloud, and pricing is actually sort of not the first thing they look at. They may kind of take a quick look and be like, okay, like is this in the kind of in the scope of what I would expect? But first thing they want to do is just want to try the product. This again applies to cloud. For me, really the success is if somebody signs up and within the first 5 minutes they have data loaded and they're running queries. Again, we're a cloud database. To me, that's really the thing that I'm looking for. Pricing comes a little bit later, right? We give some amount of free credits and just prove out your use case, be successful.
Yeah, tell us, how is that advertised on your cloud marketplace listing? Like I'm a developer interested in using ClickHouse's offer. Is it a free tier? Is it a free trial that's time-based? It's credit. Sounds like it's credit-based.
Free credits. It's just like, here's $300, go to town, right? Like, and like, you don't really have to care. Like we will.
Simple.
Yeah, just like as simple as possible. Just we pay you to try this out in our cloud. There's again always an alternative to downloading it, but it's much faster just to try it out in cloud. That's what it says. Like
And
the monitoring amount.
That's enough money to give them runway to try out the product, see if it solves problems they care about.
Exactly. We've carefully kind of considered like what would be a trial that's meaningful to our users, and so we've structured the number of credits that we extend to support most common types of trials. Yes, and then when you run out, again, you can almost continue this trial either through Marketplace, and just convert to using your Marketplace credits, and that's very attractive to users that have that credit.
Yep.
And then also, if you don't want to use it right away, sometimes what we actually see is an individual technologist just puts that on a credit card first to kind of continue like a hobby project, and eventually they actually start consuming through Marketplace once it gets over a certain level of success that they've then advocate for the company to get behind this project.
Gotcha. That's great. Okay, Josh, so you've got all this wicked content about NetApp written by your SMEs, and now you've got a call to action to hit your cloud marketplace listing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your strategy for the listing, and also how do you do free tiers or free trials? What does that look and feel?
Yeah. So I'll stipulate, like I said, because we have quite a large portfolio of both data storage and services products, as well as we've made acquisitions in the cloud ops space, like with products like Spot and Instacluster. So it varies a little bit, but we have free trial offerings as part of our listings. Where it gets a little bit complicated is that we're fortunate enough to have quite an active channel. In fact, a majority of our business is driven by channel partners. So in addition to our own listings, we also have channel partners that have wrapped our core product listing in services they deliver around it, right? Wow. So if you go into any of the marketplaces, you'll often find channel partners associated with some of our core products. But we've also begun to move into leveraging some of that native free trial technology that the marketplaces are offering. AWS, in my experience, has been the most mature. And the benefit of that is that AWS offers digital marketing hooks and unique functionality that is native to inside their ecosystem, and brings the benefit of leveraging their demand generation sales force. And in some cases, these people are incentivized to drive people to a free trial that you build within their garden. So it's kind of a mix and match. Obviously, like anyone, we have resource constraints. We prioritize at times, hey, we'd like to go and instantiate the new marketplace free trial technology. And they say, well, this is where the BD guy, and the healthy tension between the BD guy and the product people, right? But it's really, like I said, it's moving very fast. And, that's why, we've been exploring technologies like Tackle, because while we have plenty of people that have been working and bringing our products to the marketplace for a long time, there's no one quite like Tackle that has developed a complete, business around a subject matter expertise of leveraging those technologies, keeping up. And then, I believe you guys co-build functionality with some of the marketplaces. So that's, one of the reasons that we closely watch what Tackle's up to.
That's great. Thanks, Josh. So this is really cool. So what I think we're hearing is people see your content, they get interested, and they have that ability to test drive your products without really any commitment. And that's becoming a new inflection point in the industry and enterprise B2B on trying before buying, is I want to really kick the tires of this. That's really interesting. Okay, so as we move from acquisition, at some point in the product experience, there's an activation key event or an aha moment. And I'm sure both of your teams have thought a lot about that aha moment. We'd love to learn a bit about what that aha moment is, enough where you've almost planted the hook, that they have enough value that you're convinced. Can you describe what that aha moment is in your products? Tanya, let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, that time to kind of running my query and having it show me that this database is for me, for my workload,
so
is the
speed of the query?
The speed of the query and sort of the relevance of the results that come back is the most important thing for users of an analytical database. So we do a couple of things to help our users there. First of all, before you even get to your queries, as I mentioned, you can load sample data and run sample queries very fast. You can do this within just a few minutes of launching our service. We also have an open benchmarking site where you can compare these kind of sample queries on sample data sets to alternatives. But then to load your own data, this is where we provide, again, UI-driven tools to do this very quickly, or a client, for developers that want to do it via command line. So again, smoothing that path to your own data in your own queries is really the number one goal of an onboarding experience. And just making that very simple has been an explicit UX goal when we set up and designed our UI. And as a result, we have seen a lot of success there. We have a lot of users that maybe, when I talk to them, they've never used ClickHouse before. They've heard about us maybe on Hacker News and other places, but they've always considered sort of the cost of running it themselves potentially prohibitive, a small team, a small startup. But with a cloud offering that's really optimized to that onboarding experience and getting to aha moment as fast as possible, those barriers have been removed. So we've really focused on that. Like an explicit goal for design was exactly this, smoothing that path to insight.
Okay. And so from that time to value, from they sign up, they've created an account, they've got a ClickHouse instance going, to that aha moment, what's roughly that timeline? There might be some variance in it, but what are some examples of that?
Yeah, so time to kind of sample data to sample queries is minutes. Time to kind of onboard your own data, depending on the data set. Some data sets are very large.
So you got to get your data in there, and then you got to start querying it. And you're saying the aha moment's performance based.
Yeah, it's almost like limited by the network speed. How long does it take you for you to upload your analytical data set? Like, we want to remove all other barriers, right? And then in terms of like a conversion, this is an interesting question, actually, going back to like the trial. What we sort of like have realized is users have ultimately different needs in terms of what they want to try. Some want like a big data set and just a few queries. Others want a small data set, but try to run many concurrent queries. So we actually just want to give them an allowance to organize their trial the way they want. We don't want to put constraints around it. And really at the point where they have explored enough and have run out of credit, they have a few choices. They can go to pay as you go. And we'll talk, I'm sure, in a minute about usage-based pricing. Again, it's very smooth. There's no like upfront commitment. You just go very smoothly to this usage-based kind of extended trial, or you can engage with us. There's always a call out saying, hey, if these credits were not enough for you, engage with us. We're open to kind of giving you more. The goal really is to convince you that this platform is the right choice for you.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. But first, let's hear from Josh. So Josh, you've got your content, you've got them on your listings, you've got them in a free mode. The aha moment in the products that you have through the marketplace. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what that looks and feels like for your customers?
Yeah, and also I noticed that one of our absolute marketplace ninjas is in the chat. So if you have NetApp questions, direct them there. Doug is a great resource. So I'd put us in 3 buckets, right? I think you have the aha moment for like that traditional customer that I talked about that has been operating, storage clusters in a data center for most of his career. Okay. And this is the first time that he's either going to use the cloud as a target for backup and DR, or begin to migrate a data set there to running his application. That aha moment is like, wow, this works. And it feels a lot like everything I've ever done once I learned, some basics about the cloud. So you have that one. The second one I think you have is the what I'll call a cloud native developer that, like I said, needs file technology to underpin an application that he's writing. I'll be honest, that guy, I don't think for file stores, there's not much of an aha moment. It's like, great, it works. Like there's file storage underneath this. So it's that to me, it's like, as long as that guy has a smooth experience and continuing his dev work, we've won. The third one that gets more interesting, that are probably the products that are a little more discoverable and a little more, cutting edge in terms of cloud, are the DevOps offerings and the open source database management offerings we have with Spot and Instacluster. And those you can certainly go and try. For Spot. We have a wide variety of offerings underneath the Spot banner. On the one hand, you have a lot of DevOps functionality, but on the other hand, Spot is a cloud optimization tool where you go in and you essentially use it to play the spot market on AWS. And you can actually go and look at the kind of instances you typically run, and it looks in an automated fashion for opportunities to buy those instances on the spot market, and it can greatly reduce your bill. So I think the aha moment for customers there, once they, whoa, am I there?
Yep, we can hear you. Yeah.
Once they go and essentially click on a spot private offer and start using it in their environment, they begin to see their bill impacted at the end of a month. And I think that's a big aha moment, particularly for CFOs. So we have a very wide, I'll also say, what I think is interesting about this conversation, and I'm learning from Tanya, is that while we do have people that go and discover, we as a large portfolio of software products kind of company are really using the marketplace to transition the way that we sell software subscriptions. And so just as impactful as that discovery process is taking customers into that experience of, rather than having to go through a long cycle of procurement and approvals, of being able to draw from an established pre-committed budget and have a digital asset land in their console and click a button and immediately have access to that. So you've just greatly shortened the cycle of them being able to realize time to value on the software they're purchasing from us.
That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, you can really see how that impacts the sales motion, cycle length, and the ability to move from that trial to purchase. So now let's actually dive into the conversion, the actual purchase experience. We know that one of the other foundational tenets in a product-led growth motion is going to be the ability for a self-service purchase, which can be done through cloud marketplaces. And you've spoken about the free trial, or the free tiers, and then how those kind of auto convert into the conversion. Let's start with you, Tanya. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you've structured your pricing. I believe it's a usage-based pricing capability. Can you tell us a bit about what is the value metric and how you've structured your pricing?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is usage-based, but it was, again, really interesting to us, like, what is usage-based pricing? And it came down to who is the user that's actually making the purchasing decision. Because again, for a database, there's users that are developers using it or analysts using it. Those are often not the people making the purchasing decision. Often the people making purchasing decisions are more around infrastructure. And so it's a different persona, and they compare to different alternatives. And so for us, the right usage-based metrics ended up being more infrastructure focused, like storage consumed and compute consumed. And while that may seem unintuitive from like the analyst user's perspective, oh, I'm an analyst, I'm running queries, maybe I want to think about how many queries I run. For an infrastructure platform engineer, they actually have to think about all the users and totality of all of their workloads and consumption. And it's a different sort of calculation and a different kind of forecasting. And so ultimately we landed on only two dimensions: storage, where a database, you store data, that's pretty easy, and the totality of compute consumed, which these platform teams actually have a lot of experience estimating. They're often thinking about workloads moving from one data store to another. That ended up being kind of the main metric. And it took some discovery for us to realize that even though usage-based pricing is like what we think about it, the dimensions can be technical and can be infrastructure focused. But the trick is you have to meter them, in small increments. Amount consumed, per hour, or amount consumed even per minute. And that's how we think about it. That's how we meter it. And it's absolutely smooth, kind of pay-as-you-go indicators for infrastructure like a database service.
Right. So customers can start with a very small amount, bite-sized amount, until they grow and get more successful in their offer using your tech to do that. We have a question from Vic, which we'll ask you, but we'll also ask Josh when it comes time for his turn. Do you provide any cost estimation tools, or is the pricing intuitive enough for them to kind of ballpark what this would cost them if they really wanted to go all in on it?
Cost estimation is pretty simple, but we do provide examples, right? And we do provide actually examples of like, what might this mean for kind of an internal data warehousing use case or a customer facing kind of application development use case. We have examples, we have sample calculations, but the goal with pricing actually was to make it so simple that you can just take, like a few kind of numbers out of your head and almost just calculate it without needing a calculator.
Okay, so that forethought was in the design of the pricing model, was to make it intuitively simple, that it actually may not need a cost estimation tool or assistance. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay, Josh, let's go to you. So that self-service purchase experience, how did you and your team and the product team decide on the value metric of what to price your usage-based model. Can you educate us on that?
That's actually, we're pretty similar to Tanya. I mean, I'll focus mostly on just kind of our core data storage products. There's three variables. It's capacity, time, and the performance tier of how you want to be able to access the data. So, there were discussions on looking at our traditional business and then how we needed to align that with the economics of running our software on hyperscaler IaaS versus running it on, servers that, we deliver to a data center. And as we look at the clouds, obviously, we have tons of kinds of cost calculators and estimators for the kinds of workloads that we would support, that our file storage would under support. And then you can go and do the calculations. The other interesting one that's happening with us is that we're seeing, in the case of, for example, our first party service on Microsoft is actually complemented by some of our products. In the case of AWS and the first party service we launched there, which is called FSx for NetApp ONTAP, a lot of those workloads that we originally were selling our 3P, what I call our 3P SaaS offering, that first party was designed to be a better mousetrap. And so we see customers beginning to do, the kind of calculations and designing migration paths. So that's a little bit different. And it obviously moves out of the marketplace in that case. But again, with data storage, it's pretty simple. Like how many petabytes for how long, and how fast do you want it to run?
Okay, so we've got these buyers coming in. They've learned about your product through content. They've landed on the cloud marketplace listing. There's a free entry point. They hit an aha moment, and they start paying a usage-based experience. So maybe starting off bite-sized, but they're paying list price at this point. So obviously, strategically, in comes the sales team. How do you coordinate with your sales team based on the product usage of this product-led journey of this customer to insert your seller to maybe propose a longer-term commitment with a discount using perhaps a private offer? Tanya, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so a couple of first, some users self-identify. So of course, we have a clear call out that you can reach out to us for discounts. You can reach out to us for any conversation. So there's a very clear contact us button that needs to be, baked into pricing, baked into your homepage even, right? To really indicate that this company has a direct sales and support team to support questions, right? Including pricing and discounting questions.
And that's right on your listing, like you're saying?
It's not. I believe that it's not like on the marketplace listing itself, but it is on our pricing page, which again, is often the entry point for very detailed understanding of our pricing and tiers. And right there, we mentioned that we have marketplace and that we have discounts.
So this is the pricing page that might be there's a link on it on the listing that people can go to go.
Exactly. And vice versa. Yeah, and vice versa, right? Like if you come organically to our website, the pricing page indicates that we operate on the AWS marketplace. In the future, we'll talk about this in a minute, GCP marketplace. And so that if you have ability to transact in those marketplaces, that's a first party offer from us.
I see.
And yeah, I mean, absolutely, you're right. There's kind of users that self-identify and say, well, I tried your product, that's great, pay-as-you-go pricing is great, but we already know that we want to pre-commit for some amount of spend, and we would like to work with you on another tier of pricing for our use case. And we're absolutely open to users self-identifying. But more importantly, what we do is we do real-time product analytics of all of our cloud users. And we have some indicators of usage that signal to our support team, to our sales team, to reach out to certain users, because we know we can help them, right, optimize their spend.
How does a seller reach out to somebody using the product?
So all of the users have, of course, email addresses where we can reach out. Many of them open support cases, so we have a way to reach back out to them via, again, information that they use to register with us. But the information that tells us that they're a good person to reach out to has to do with the usage of their product. So we're collecting all of the information around kind of the metadata, right? We don't have access to like their private data, but we know, for instance, that this many users have logged into our platform and this many users have run some amount of queries that seem to be high intent.
Okay,
so we know that usage translates to something that we can help with when it comes to a private offer.
Okay, so you have product usage triggering a business condition to insert the seller to come in and propose a private offer.
That's correct.
That's pretty high tech. That's impressive. Josh, how about yourself?
Yep. We're kind of unique in that on our product teams, we actually have customer support and solutions architects on those teams that are watching most of the self-service business come in. They'll often, reach out to the customer proactively, or by using our sort of control plane to orchestrate and provision resources. That's where you're going to go and kind of find your direct pathways into those support resources. It's kind of an ongoing discussion. Obviously, there's certain individuals that are happy to have people paying full hourly rates for as long as they care to, but usually there'll be an inflection point where a customer will be handed off to a sales team that, we have quite a large global sales force, quite a structured sort of account support model. So those will be handed over to a client executive, and then the appropriate, we have a lot of different overlay resources. Like I mentioned, we have a large portfolio of cloud products. So we have a lot of overlay teams that come in that bring particular subject matter expertise. And then on an ongoing basis, particularly when we land large private offers, we have a cloud customer success consumption team that comes in behind to make sure that customers know everything that they need to know to get the full value of the product. And that we see, we don't like people to go and, commit to a huge private offer and then actually not use the product. So it's in both our interest to make sure that they're successful, and that they consume the financial commitment that they made.
Gotcha. So we've got individuals using the product, and through the product usage, a product qualified lead is created. It's handed off to a sales team that can have the enterprise-wide value proposition discussion, not just for that user or the team, but actually for the entire company. That dovetails and complements really nicely. We've got about 1 minute left. So really quick, last question. What is your suggestion as the first step to enter in product-led sales motions through cloud marketplaces? Tanya.
UX is king. As I mentioned, it's really user-led growth. So if you don't have a product that from a user and user experience perspective is well positioned for product-led growth, you're going to potentially struggle, or maybe it's not going to be as optimized. So think about that user experience, think about that aha moment, and from there, everything will fall into place.
Thank you, Tanya. That's great. Josh, how about yourself? What's that first step?
Assuming you have a robust product that you think is ready to deliver value to customers, reach out and work with the marketplace organizations of the clouds. Like, they're there to help, and they have a vested interest in helping you get your product there and sell it via the marketplace. I'll also make a shameless plug, because I think a lot of Tackle and how they've helped, I happen to be in a mature company, but I've seen in less mature companies, Tackle greatly shorten the timeline for getting to revenue via the marketplaces. And, it's they're there for a reason. They've developed the expertise for a reason.
That's great. Well, listen, I think we're now going to open it up for questions. Nicole, is that correct? Okay, so why don't we take some questions? We're going to move to the lounge. There's a bunch of questions, everyone, I didn't have a chance to ask. For example, Josh has a lot of experience of actually having channel-led sales through cloud marketplaces with product-led growth. Now, that is a tongue twister right there. We didn't get a chance to talk to him about that. We also didn't get a chance to talk to Tanya about her next set of experiments with product-led growth. So I'm not sure who can join us, so I'm certainly going to go to the lounge. Josh, you might have a
few minutes. I've got a few minutes.
Okay, so why don't we hop over into the lounge and continue a Q&A at a table. Thanks very much, everyone.